Sometimes you just want to unwind, relax and check out some awesome action animes. No need for any big thinking masterminds with intrinsic plans that they've made through the whole season. This is all about slick gunfights, big explosions, the insane battles and the top class action. Good to see you all here at Animeology. We know you've probably seen all the big flashy names in the action anime genre, so we have some quality recommendations for you today that you probably haven't heard of. Let's get into it.
Dance the jitterbug, baby!
Let's see.
Number 10. Noir. Noir is sexy, stylish, and chocked full of jaw-dropping action, following the story of two beautiful young female assassins as they depart on a journey to uncover their past and learn the truth about themselves. As a viewer, you're thrown headfirst into this crazy world full of death, lies, and deceit, not really sure what's going on or who to trust. Noir has this really masterful way of trickling information to us in such a way that made us want to keep coming back for more. Don't believe us? Once this anime wraps up, the fans wanted more and led to the creation of another two spiritual successor animes that were also extremely successful in their own right. Number 9. Fairy Tail. Definitely a newer anime out there, the Fairy Tail series itself has been running for a while. Highly successful and considered one of the better adventure fantasy series out there, it's clear to see why. Set in an interesting world filled with wizards and magical fantasy beasts, we follow Natsu Dragoneel, a wizard that specialises in slaying dragons. Yes, it's definitely as cool as it sounds. We join him on his epic journey as he searches for his missing adoptive father. A pretty classic journey type with a light harem element as the MC starts to build up on his adventuring team. The various arcs are enjoyable and takes on some pretty interesting journeys. The real job of this series is the battles. Having so many unique and distinctive members of his party, whenever battles pop off in Fairy Tail, it's definitely a very awesome watch. Huge colours, big spells, impressive levels of destruction. Number 8. Batoom. Batoom is pretty unique, and it's pretty fair to say that you haven't really seen anything like it. A strong focus on survival, the series focuses on Ryota, an unemployed shut-in that has serious socializing issues. His confidence comes from his pure skill as one of the world's top players in the video game. Batoom. Yeah, that's the name of the series, I get it. In the real-life version of the game, Ryota meets his in-game wife, Himiko. Teaming up with a bunch of other players, Ryota and his squad fight their way through Batoom in a desperate attempt to escape and get back home. The series has a very gritty and down-to-earth sense of action and fighting, really impressive and really well done. It's not overly stylish spells and insane gunfights. The feel of the series is very guttural. Honestly, we had no idea if someone was going to survive or not. It's really refreshing when an anime makes you feel like that, on the edge of your seat, for every action scene. Throughout the series, the story does get pretty grand. Hints of a government conspiracy, terrorist organisations unravel some insane truths about the game, and even the MC himself. Definitely worth a watch, unique, and certainly extremely refreshing. Number 7. Guilty Crown. Guilty Crown was reasonably well known when it first came out. Set in a really creepy and menacing version of the future, the series focuses on a somewhat complex but very intricate political mess. The world of Guilty Crown is a very grim one. A huge virus spreads across Japan and the government is forced to ask for help from the United Nations, ultimately getting help from a mysterious organisation known as GHQ, which ends up taking control of the country. We follow Shu, a normal high schooler who gains the power of the king. This insane ability drags Shu into this insane conflict between government and terrorist organisations. As the normal high schooler gets dragged deeper and deeper into the world of spies, secret organisations, corruption and insane power. The visual effects and fights in Guilty Crown make this such a great watch. The world building and design kept us really interested, although some of the character dynamics and romance did feel a bit forced. Number 6. Vinland Saga. Historical animes tend to be set either in feudal Japan or medieval Europe. Vinland Saga decided to focus on the seriously underrated Nordic empires. Just think Vikings and heavy metal, the perfect setting for an epic anime adventure. Interestingly enough, the story of Vinland Saga is actually based on some really famous historical stories, mythical stories with their own interesting twists on them. Even some of the characters were real-life people. The MC Thorfinn is like the textbook definition of a badass. He is a teenage warrior that loves his people but despises his commander. He has sworn to avenge his father's death by killing his commander one day, but for him to be able to duel his high-ranking commander, Thorfinn needs to earn the right by accomplishing some very impressive feats. Not an issue. Thorfinn is insanely physically gifted. He does not fight for the love of battle, vengeance is what drives him. He is extremely hot-headed and arrogant, often costing him heavily in some of the most epic historical action scenes you will ever see in an anime. Number 5. Soul Eater. Soul Eater is one of the more refreshingly fantasy comedy animes because it paints a very grim and bitter world. Even the dialogue between the characters has this very bleak and downtrodden feel to it. Definitely a nice break from the traditional. Set in the Death Weapon Meister Academy, this school is run by Shinigami. Those are the gods of death for the anime uninitiated. This training facility teaches humans to perfect their abilities to transform themselves and control these godlike weapons. The ultimate aim of these students is to have these weapons absorb the souls of 99 evil humans and one witch. This would make these weapons insanely powerful and get used by Shinigami. A very cool and stylish series that is so strongly focused on good action. I mean, just the storyline itself, the fact that you need to fill the weapon with the souls of humans and witches is a fantastic setup. A really fun watch that takes the characters all around the world and puts them in really interesting and strange situations, on the chase to turn their weapons into super powerful death size. Number 4. Black Lagoon. Black Lagoon is quality. In terms of traditional real-life action, probably the best action anime out there. You absolutely have to watch it. Sexy, beautiful women that don't hesitate to pull guns on one another, some brilliant arcs with a really intense focus on crime. Set in the mid-90s, Black Lagoon follows a team of pirate mercenaries that operate under the Lagoon Company flag. Smuggling goods and pirating around Southeast Asia, we see some fantastic exotic settings such as Thailand and Cambodia. A huge collection of bad guys from the Japanese Yakuza, Chinese Triads, Colombian Cartel and Italian Mafia. It's so awesome to see an anime that focuses on the criminal underbellies filled with thugs, thieves, prostitutes and assassins. A brilliant watch with some truly iconic characters and some absolutely breathtaking action. Gunfights, bar fights, knife fights, huge explosions. I just might rewatch Black Lagoon myself. Number 3. Dead Man Wonderland.
俺は生きたいんだ
This is one of the peak action series out there, and when you watch a single episode, it's clear to see why. Set in a very interesting post-apocalyptic world, the series wastes no time throwing us headfirst into a riveting thriller. A huge anomaly earthquake ripped Japan apart and left most of the country underwater. 10 years later, we follow a normal high schooler that has no memory of the horrible natural disaster, until this strange supernatural being enters his classroom, massacres everyone else, and marks him. Placed on trial, our MC is found guilty and sentenced to death at a very stylish and really interesting prison known as Dead Man's Wonderland. What makes this prison so interesting is that it's also a theme park. Each inmate has a colour put on that injects deadly poison into the bloodstream. This poison can be offset by consuming a particular candy every 3 days. The inmate needs to take part in these horrific prison games and earns currency in order to buy this candy and survive. A really fun and interesting setting that allows Dead Man Wonderland to be filled with some epic action scenes. An exceptionally interesting story as well that brings in the supernatural in a very light-hearted and interesting way. Number 2. Boccano. Now, Boccano is like a legitimate personal favourite of ours, and we absolutely highly recommend you check it out. A really awesome period piece set in the 1930s. Boccano blends adventure and mystery with some absolutely stylish fight scenes. What makes Boccano such a brilliant action-based anime is that the strength of the mystery and the story really carry you well between fights. The characters are also unique and fit into the story in a very refreshing way. The story is told from multiple points of view and leaves the viewer very disorientated as you slowly try to fill in the blanks of this interweaving tale. Following alchemists, thieves, thugs and gangsters connected to each other through this mysterious potion of immortality. And number 1, Claymore. Claymore is a super heavy dark fantasy. There is no light-hearted humour or fancy lights and bright colours. The world is grim and dark and bleak. From the very beginning to the very end, Claymore remains dedicated to slick and awesome fantasy battles. The medieval world of Claymore is filled with human-looking shapeshifters that eat people. We follow this mysterious band of beautiful women that slay these beasts for a fee. Powered by strange demonic energy, death is just around every corner for the character in Claymore. The action is brilliant, the world is brilliant, the characters are fantastic. There is very little to criticise about the world of Claymore. In fact, you should do yourself a favour and just start watching the series today.